Hello again, everyone. This is a follow-up on my recent swatchings of Michael Harding watercolors and Daniel Smith gouache colors. So these have been drying in the pan for a few days. The gouache so neither of these are completely dry. I think I would still need, maybe a full week for these to fully dry. It seems like the Michael Harding ones are going to take a little bit longer, maybe because they have a higher moisture content, but they're still soft to the touch. Basically, they've thickened up, but they haven't completely solidified. These gouaches, however, are mostly dry. The only bit of, cracking that I've seen is this little bit of pull away from this yellow, but it looks like they're gonna do well. I put them together in a palette with a couple of crushed up pastels. These were pastels that came to me broken from the store, so I put them in some full pans and added some water. That's all I did. These will not stay on the page like watercolors would, just because they don't have the same binder, especially in this form, but maybe I'll go ahead and see how they perform. This is not an example of what these colors are. First off, this one is a little bit of a mix of different dust that was at the bottom of the box, and I frankly can't remember what color these were. But they are the Townsend pastel, soft pastels, and it's totally not the pastels themselves that were the problem. It was the way it was shipped to me. They were shipped kind of loose in a box, and so they kind of broke up. And then this little guy over here in the corner, I had a little color swatch somewhere for that one. Here it is. This is Shadow Violet by Daniel Smith. I had this in my sort of everyday palette that I use as sort of my main watercolor palette, but I took it out and I actually replaced it with Da Vinci's Artemis, and we'll see. It's very similar to Shadow Violet and to Moonglow, but I think it's a little more dynamic than the two of those. So I'm gonna re-swatch the Michael Harding watercolors and the gouache, the Daniel Smith gouache. I'm gonna do it on the back of this sheet that I did the Daniel Smith gouaches on. So this is what they look like from wet, directly from the tube. And they're really lovely. They're actually like a very smooth application of color, totally opaque on the top here. Definitely more opaque than, say, some of the Winsor Newton gouaches that I have. I think they perform great, and I've been really impressed with them. But now we're going to see what they look like when they're in the pan after they've dried, and I'm going to test out these Michael Harding watercolors as well. Do I have that? I do. Okay. Is that this one? Yeah. So this is the swatches of the Michael Harding watercolors when they were still kind of wet. And I did some mixing down here, which turned out really nice, actually. Colors turned out really pretty. And I'm swatching these on B paper, which is 100% cotton watercolor paper that comes in sheets, and I got it from Amazon, so I will put a link down below to that paper. It's a really nice paper for not a lot of money. All right, I'll probably bring those back out. Oh, but it does look like I got a little bit of color on the back. One of the nice things about this paper is the texture is similar back and front. So, you can essentially use it two-sided. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little tiny bit of water on each of these colors. They don't seem to need much encouraging, but I do kind of want to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I'm going to do the same to the gouaches. Oh, looks like my water's a little dirty. That white gouache is not going to be white. Oh, well, okay. And I'll test out those pastels just so you can see what they look like. And then let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start with the Michael Harding watercolors, and then we can kind of do a comparison to how they look wet. Oh my goodness, these still really re-wet fantastically. These are great. As far as texture goes, they're super nice. My only concern is because it is taking them a really long time to dry, because generally, yeah, just as nice in my opinion as from wet. Because normally if I would let things sit, because I think these sat for either 3 or 4 days in this state. Normally, because I'm in Colorado too, they would normally be totally dry. And because they're not, it makes me think that either you need to give it more time to dry before you close it up in a palette, or you, actually that one looks nicer than it did from the wet pan. Or they might not be the best travel watercolors. We'll see if they completely solidify. Yeah, these are great. These are fantastic. And I'll put a link down below to the mixing set that this is from, so you'll see what the colors are that are included. Because this is really just to test these colors again. Whoa, that's a pretty intense color. To test these colors against the swatches we were able to get when the watercolor was wet out of the tube. And yeah, so pretty. I'm really liking the texture and flow of these watercolors. The only thing is, so, and this is because I'm doing weird brush strokes as well, but you see this streakiness? On some brands that would completely blend together no matter how much you'd do weird strokes. So I think this is just a reminder to be a little bit more mindful with how you're painting with them, so that they don't get those strokes, unless of course you want them. Wow, such pretty colors. And I think that's Hooker's Green, if I remember correctly. Wow, okay, these are amazing. I think they actually, let's go ahead and take a look at those compared to the, did I have, no, that was a mix as well. But I think I actually got more saturation from pans by putting a little bit of water on there than I did directly from the tube, which makes no sense at all, but really, really nice. I really love the texture. So let's move on to the Daniel Smith Gouache. And again, I'm going to skip the white, but I am going to mix the white. Actually, let's go ahead and put this other color that I have in here, this Shadow Violet from Daniel Smith. Let's go ahead and put that here. It's actually very similar to that, which I think was Purple Haze. And I'm going to add some of the white gouache to this. And I was going to say, in theory, it should make it opaque, and it absolutely did. It absolutely did, because that gouache is opaque. And it looks really nice from the pan. Okay. So I'll put a link down below to the prior swatching videos for these things so that you can see what happened before. Okay, so one thing I am noticing, like this one is not looking super opaque right off the bat, where it was looking super opaque right off the bat when it was wet. So that might be one downside to drying these, is that they're not going to be as opaque. Even this yellow, even though it does look pretty opaque, it's not as opaque. But it's doing a great job in the pan. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this one looks, I mean, except for where I'm really watering it out with water. Okay. Yeah, so I do think that you're going to have a little bit more trouble keeping the opaque nature when you have these in pans, but they're so nice. I mean, they're really smooth and creamy and really come off the pan nicely. And they're certainly more opaque than regular watercolors in this way. And then we only have one color left, which I think was, oh wow, well that's opaque, but it's hard not to get that one opaque. That is Venetian Red, I think. All right. So, yeah, you can see like the blue is not as opaque. Yeah, even this one is not as opaque, and that's just sort of, you know, applying water to the color. And as you can see here, they all were super opaque out of the tube. So I would say that for the Daniel Smith gouache, if you want to make sure that it's opaque right off the bat, keep it in liquid form in the tube. But if you want to travel with them and don't mind, you know, giving an extra brush or two to make it opaque, or you don't care if they're opaque and you just want really saturated watercolor, I think these gouaches are fantastic. And again, with that, I think it's odd that they did a gouache out of the Cascade Green, because I think part of the charm of Cascade Green is that you can get all this color separation, and that really requires it to be diluted. You can't tell too much here because I'm just pulling that out. Okay. So, and like I said, I'll put the original swatching videos for these two products down below. I will put, I'll put the links, well, actually, I'll just put the links to those videos, and those videos will have the links to the products so that you can see what colors were in the set if you're interested. I also talk about what colors they are in the last videos for these. And so the other thing I wanted to try, this is sort of a bonus, you know, don't stay if you aren't interested. So dry or soft pastels are really dry. So this was just adding a little bit of water and trying to get some stuff off that soft pastel. But if I rub it a little more, it's going to be a little more saturated, and I can add more water on the page. So this is sort of a grayish blue color. What's kind of interesting to me is I'm still getting the streaks of where I originally put it down. Soft pastels are totally different as far as how they operate from watercolor. Actually, now that I'm seeing this might actually be a nice way to get texture. Like if you put that over this, let's actually try that. Let's try putting the soft pastel over another color, so you can get a little bit of texture, like sort of dry brush texture over the top. So that's kind of cool. Let me try the other color I have here. But like I said, they're so dry. And if I had maybe a super, super wet brush, it's about as wet as it's going to get, like that. But it's going to be a little bit more streaky than watercolor, and it's not going to be as permanent as watercolor. But I didn't want to lose these pastels. I did actually get them replaced. So this is sort of just, you know, rather than throw them away, this is what I did. They told me to just throw them away. But you know, being who I am, I wanted to save every tiny little crumb. All right, well, there you go. I definitely think that the Daniel Smith gouache is a winner. I definitely think that the Michael Harding watercolors are a winner. The only issue is this streakiness. And again, this brush doesn't hold a ton of water. So if you were to put them into, like I've been doing, again, this is kind of dirty water here, starting with. But if you were to put them, let's use that purple one because that one seemed to streak the most. So if you put it directly into water like that, or use a lot of water on your brush, you're not going to have that problem at all. And they're so creamy that, you know, I don't think it's going to be a problem to even out those streaky marks. But yeah, that one, that's kind of interesting because this one has a green and I don't think it has a purple. I think it has like green and red and something else. It's very similar to this one, which this is the Daniel Smith. Again, dirty water, sorry about that. That's that Shadow Violet. So let's compare that. Whoa, that flowed a lot different, a lot more than the other one. I don't know if you saw that, but it kind of traveled really fast. But they're very similar. And if I were to put Moonglow here too, I think it would probably be even more similar to this, but these are so similar. This Shadow Violet, and I think this was called Haze Violet by Michael Harding. You know, if you have one, you don't really need the other, because I would have to look at the tubes to see if they're the exact same pigments, but you definitely could use them for the same thing, because you're still getting the green back in here, like you're getting here. That's not to say they're not great colors. I love that effect, and clearly lots of people do, because different brands are making more colors like that. All right. Well, that really is all I had for you today. Feel free to subscribe to keep track of future videos on my channel. Like I said, I'll put all the references to the prior things down below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. Did I already say that? I might have. But in any case, I hope to see you next time. But in the meantime, have a great day. Thanks so much. Bye.